the energy, and the person who's giving their energy up is negotiating the rate of production of energy that they can give to the corporate jurisdiction that they are signing the application with. So it's basically an exchange of economics or currency for labor expended, right? It's a basic math problem. Now, the laborer is unaware of the calculating instrument of the labor. So he don't really know his true worth. He don't know that the corporations measure the jobs by physical exertion and calories burned per hour, the same way as they would say this is how many miles to the gallon that this car can get. So they know how much output for the type of job that you're applying for that you worth. And you know they're going to give you about 1% of the value of that to them, right? When they should be giving you a functional wage. They created a system called inflation that can constantly steal from you by changing the rate by which your energy can be transferred and used to your benefit. It has nothing to do with social economics because you can have an economy with no inflation. Inflation is based off a debt concept of banking called fractional reserve banking, where you start using the debt as the collateral for the currency, which is a double debt, right? When you double down on the debt, it's twice as hard to get from under it. You know, it's like you got a house note that balloons and becomes double what it was. It becomes twice as hard to pay it as it was before, right? It's all in fractional reserve banking and how they put the money system together to always take your energy and never give you the value of the energy they took. We are under the impression that we just trying to make a living in this life. We don't want the struggle that comes with making a living being absorbed by inflation. So now what we was able to take care of a family on $5 an hour in the 60s, you can't take care of a family on $50 an hour in 2022. The price of gas alone is enough to suck your bank account dry, right? So in the whole process now, we trying to figure out how to get the people properly treated in order for Earth to advance to a golden age. This is the whole motivation, because in the golden age, this is the sun cycle coming in on the 24,000 year galactic clock, reference Charles Mosley Bay Clock of Destiny. When the galactic clock switches over from the silver lunar cycle to the golden moon cycle, we're going to go from temperatures increasing by up to 20 degrees around the world, right? Because now the things that's in secret has to be smoked out, so to speak. You know how they used to catch a rabbit in a hole and then they smoke one end, make it run out the other one? So right now, the sun cycle got the humans in the process of smoking out the devils that was holding us under those debt systems. And these systems, in turn, was oppressing the people so subtly until the people no longer knew they were being oppressed, misused, abused, and exploited. We heard about the 800,000 children a year go missing in the United States alone, right? That's almost 1 million children go missing every year, but we don't know about the cases. We might know about in the forefront of the media, they might showcase 100 cases throughout the year at the most across the land, and that's all locally. So we're not really getting the full impact of the tyranny taking place with the human trafficking and child exploitation. So we had to figure out how to reapply universal law, and that's not easy as it sounds, because you have to go through the dark night of the soul. That's the misery, right?
So
That's like,
with you though, as a young star, a child, had a had feelings. Would you call these feelings maybe remembrances coming back from an earlier cycle here, or just knowing what you're, or remembering the assignment that you came here to fulfill at a very young age, that you knew that you came to do what you're doing now?
well, it came a point where I ignored the spiritual message because I'm a child, and they were overwhelming for me as a child. When I got to be a teenager, I got so good at blocking the messages out that they didn't bother me like they used to at earlier ages. And when I was blocking the messages out, it was pushing me more into what we term today street life. Because um, the lifestyles in the hood, in the inner cities, is a very, very excellent distraction from hearing the spirit talk to you. But once you get heavy enough in the streets, you're going to lean back to spirit to guide you out of that condition. And you'll start opening back up to spirit again. That's why a lot of preachers is ex-pimps, prostitutes, and drug dealers, because spirit was able to guide them out of that destructive lifestyle and point them in a direction where they can be functional in this dysfunctional society. Most of us not even aware that the society is dysfunctional, right?
Right.
So those things were overwhelming to me as a child. I had some experience as a child that I didn't understand them, but I didn't have no fear, and they were so
Give us an
perplexing to me.
example. Could you give us an example of maybe one, or of maybe something we would look at as spiritual,
Yeah,
or
so
paranormal?
there was a
Paranormal.
there was an instance in elementary school where we was playing like dodgeball or something, and the ball was in the air, and I jumped to get the ball. Continued to rise up until my body hit the ground. As soon as my body hit the ground, I snapped back in my body,
So
and
you kind of blinked. You kind of it kind of blinked you out a bit. So you were saying that you went up to get the ball. Could you repeat that? Because it kind of, we didn't get it all.
right. So as I jumped for the ball, my spirit separated from my body,
Okay.
and I could see the back of my head under me while my body is falling down face first to the concrete.
Oh.
And as soon as my body hit the ground, my spirit snapped back in my body. And I think that was more painful than the contact with the concrete. I know it was more startling.
The going back into your body was painful.
Yeah, because
Now,
it was done under the impact of a fall.
do you think you left your body as a because I think about people, like say people fall, somebody falling over a cliff. I feel like a lot of those people leave their bodies before they hit the ground, because they already know, the bottom, that they're gonna die, and so they exit out. We kind of think they might have had a lot of pain, but it might just be the vessel that gets, that the fact that you see imminent death, or did your body see that you were going to hit face first?
Death never came into the equation, to my understanding, at that time.
Oh, but is that possible, that was the reason of the separation of
No,
body?
I think that the reason for the separation is that I wasn't aware of how spiritually connected I was to the physical. I didn't identify enough with the body to bond properly with the physical form. So the euphoria of the jump gave me the awareness of the higher consciousness self that's able to see the lower vibrational self. So I just believe that like I zoomed out perceptually to my higher consciousness in order to review what I was doing at the time as a means of trying to comprehend the body and spirit being projected into the body. And that was like, they didn't have this term in science until recently in epigenetics. Epigenetics gives you the understanding of how the spirit is projected into the body. So epigenetics and the remote position of where the spirit is projecting from into the body becomes the understanding that matches the experience. Right? So they say hindsight is 2020. Like a lot of the stuff about like the imposters on the land that don't belong here, the society not running how we used to do it in ancient times, that's genetic memory. That's from past life recall. Like I can go back in my mind and I'll be right back in New Orleans in the nightlife in 1901, right? And I can remember conversations I had with people. But when you tell people this, the first thing come to their mind is he's going through a schizoid episode. He's losing his mind, right? But if you're not psychic or not aware of your psychic talent and how to use it, psychic experience sounds irrational to a rational mind. Mm-hmm. And that's why they call it the intoxication of the sages, or the madness of the adepts. When you go through this acute awareness that the average person can't assimilate from their perception of consciousness. So you trying to explain quantum physics to a 3-year-old that haven't even learned the alphabet yet. It's very difficult, but it's not impossible.
Excuse me. Have we been dumbed down and deliberately dumbed down? I know we have, but deliberately disconnected from our higher self and had that replaced by saviors and things that we need to look externally to.
The savior complexes, the God complexes, looking outside of yourself for divinity prevents you from looking inside for the inner glow, the inner divinity. Like the last dragon finally realizing he the master at the point of his own destruction. Right? At that point, when he realized he's at his life's end, that's when they say in the mystery system, it said like this: he who dies yet lives finds eternal life, because you find the secret of life. And the secret of life is that it ain't no secret, you're just supposed to live it. Soon as you start trying to micromanage everybody else's life, you can't live your own life. You live in the micromanager's job of being an agent in the matrix. The dumbing down was done to us through the same principles of AA. It's applied in a 12-step educational program designed to separate you from thinking so that you can learn to embrace being given orders, right? But the ones that's unruly in the educational system, because I seen through it in the 5th grade, I seen exploitation written all over the educational system. So I was sparsely participating. Mm-hmm. I wasn't getting no A's in school. I wasn't getting no B's in school. I was C student. Sometimes D's and E's. Because most of the time I just didn't do the work. And most of the time I didn't do the work because I something didn't feel right, and I didn't know how to tell nobody that the system that I'm in don't feel right. So I stopped participating. Wow. So the result of that, I end up being kicked out of school in the first semester of the 10th grade for bringing brass knuckles to school. right? And I never had to get caught with them, but I didn't care. I didn't want to be there anyway. So to me, they was doing me the favor, right? So when I was understanding what the school system was later doing psychological research, it's a combination of a Pavlovian response system and a B.F. Skinner's Skinner box, both used for indoctrination purposes and heavily researched under MK Ultra.
Now I know about Pavlov, that Pavlov's dog, and so that. But what is the B.F. Skinner box?
Well, the Skinner box is used to issue out punishment um, as opposed to treats in order to compel you to get out of a box. The punishment is the erroneous teaching pattern of the educator. It becomes torturous to remain in the class, but you have to be on your best behavior lest you incur the zap of the Skinner box, which is repackaged as the authority of the school will discipline you, right? So the good teachers is the ones that the class always goes by too fast and you actually learn something. Their teaching career is going to be short.
Mm-hmm.
There's some kind of way the school's going to get rid of them or going to overwork them where they become ineffective because they are effective. So when you look at the punishment in the Skinner box and you look at the system of the bell, instead of going to the treat, you escaping the punishment. And by jumping between escaping punishment and being trapped in punishment, you learn to accept the punishing system of the workforce.
Oh, so that's in other words, okay, training. That is the conditioning. I'm sorry, conditioning for the next. I'm being careful about what I say because I was thinking about the last 2 years that became conditioning for the next. But we won't go into that right now. But it was a if you will, a preamble or prelude to what now you've been indoctrinated into that, so that now we'll be able to take more of your energy, more of your currency that you spoke of in between now and whenever your life ends.
Right.
Based on the value they placed on it.
Right. So now the society there's nothing wrong with doing work. That's not what we're talking about. It's definitely something wrong with being exploited and underpaid for the work that you do. This is what our problem is. This is what we are in opposition of. The problem with resolving that matter is the worker doesn't understand his value to the company. So he shrinks himself down in order to fit into the company's social construct, right? So when GM was going through negotiations with the UAW a few years ago, I tried to inform the worker on how to defend themselves because they were sold out at the highest levels of the union, right? And I knew I was right because I told them if I'm right, I got to get 3 knocks from Mary Barra, who was leading the negotiations for the big 3. And 3 times in a row, they refused the contract. The reason being is the UAW never offered a contract to be negotiated on to the company, but instead asked the company what did they want to give the worker. And this is back to standard operating procedure, business as usual. But the CEOs of the big 3, our people picked them in order for the worker to be able to be properly compensated for his labor. But the people are still so naive that they won't ask for their value, and so they still continue to get exploited and underpaid for their work. Now the economy is making it where even if they start asking for what they worth now, your money is still not going to go as far as it should because the inflation. Everything is going up, but ain't nobody wages going up, right? In the whole minimum wage